Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel and also to part 2 of my keloid journey. So in the first episode, we had spoken about what keloids are, how I got mine, and also the crazy sequence of events that followed the development of my keloids, and why this entire process of sharing this with you and telling you my story and us going into the treatment options is so important for me to share with you, because it has affected me in huge ways. And I know that there are so many people like me who have trouble connecting with people on their keloids. And so I want to create this as a safe space for us to share our journey and also just find solace in one another. In that first episode, for those of you who haven't watched yet or aren't familiar with keloids, we said that keloids are these benign dermal tumors where there is this overproduction of collagen. So the scar that is produced is both raised, dark, and also it grows wider than the margins of the original injury. So the way that it presents is like that. The coloration is usually deep red, pink, purple. Like I said, it grows outside the original margins of the injury and in an uneven pattern, and it is also quite itchy. They aren't harmful to your health most of the time, depending on where in your body they're located. But besides that itch, what a lot of people also experience is neuropathic pain. And again, something that we discussed in the first episode was that the theory is that neuropathic pain comes from nerves beneath the keloid getting entrapped with the contraction of the collagen fibers. And most of the time that pain or the itch associated with keloids is usually a result of tight clothing, any kind of friction, injury to that area if the keloid's growing. And in my case, I also experience it with change of climate or change of temperature. So if I go from a cool air-conditioned room to a hot, humid environment, it hurts, and vice versa. And if I'm fatigued overall, it hurts more. So it really can happen at any point of the day without warning. Worldwide, about 10% of people are affected with keloids, but most of the time it is those of darker colorations, those of African or Asian descent. They also do have a genetic component. So if your parents have keloids, you are more likely to have them. In my case, no one out of my elders, as far as my close ancestral line goes, has keloids or had keloids. However, me and my brother both do, and his presented in a completely different way than mine, and his are also quite mild compared to mine, which are quite large. The part that people struggle with the most is often the fact that you have no idea how big they're gonna get, or when they're gonna stop growing, when they're gonna decide to continue growing, unless of course you put a preventative measure or a treatment in place. But once they do stop growing, they stop for life. They will never heal themselves and revert back to normal skin though. So once you've developed them, you've developed them. And at that point, all you can do is go in with the treatment to modify the appearance, how it feels, the tenderness, the pain associated with it, the size of it, so on and so forth. And so today, I really want to talk to you about the existing modalities that are in place to treat keloids, as well as what I have had done and what I am currently going through for my keloid. So most importantly is definitely prevention. And of course, this is only put in place once you've already realized that you tend to keloid. And so the best thing you could do is just avoid situations in which that might occur. So avoid unnecessary injury to your body. So this includes cosmetic procedures, elective surgeries if possible, tattoos, piercings, all that kind of stuff. And if there is a situation in which you must have a procedure done, but you do know that you have a keloiding tendency, then you can always talk to your physician about that, and they can put in place certain measures in order to prevent that keloid from forming, hopefully. So those things are either Botox injections at the site or Keloid injections, which is a steroid, and when they are injected post-operatively, they can limit the development of the keloid or stop it altogether. So the first non-invasive procedure available to us is either silicone as a gel or silicone dressings. And what happens is that silicone goes and attaches itself to the tissue on a molecular level, and it prevents that keloid from growing. The silicone gel is nice and it works for small keloids, but it's best when it's partnered up with the silicone dressing, which is like a bandage that puts the keloid under tension. So when the keloid is put under that tension, it doesn't really have room to grow. It's also forced to flatten down, and over time it does. There's been great results from this procedure. It's the easiest, most cost-effective way to attempt to treat your keloid first and foremost before progressing on to more invasive procedures. Along the same lines, you also have compression. And how that differs from the silicone dressings is that compression is a little more heavy duty. So instead of there being a bandage or a dressing that you put over the keloid, there's a splint. And so there's something called the Zimmer Splint, and it is usually used on earlobes, which is a common site for keloids to develop. You can actually get Zimmer splints that look just like earrings. It's nice because you do have to wear them for 24 hours for 6 to 12 months in order to see a difference. And again, the idea is the same, but just more intense. There's no space for the keloid to grow. And also because you're applying that continuous pressure, the keloid over time molds to that and flattens out and again becomes homogeneous with the surrounding skin. Next, you're moving into the more expensive and also more invasive procedures. So the first one that is usually what doctors will prescribe is corticosteroid injections. Your keloids get injected with something called Keloid or triamcinolone acetonide, and this is a steroid. You usually get 10 to 40 milligrams per milliliter depending on the size and also the location of your keloid. Each injection is spaced out between 4 to 6 weeks. With my experience, it was not that spaced out, and that steroid can build up in your body, and obviously I'm living proof that it can cause side effects that aren't often discussed. In my case, it was Cushing's syndrome or a steroid overdose. But if it is spaced out well enough, people have seen great results, including myself. I had the same injections in my earlobes and they turned out fine. Also on the side of my ribs, and those turned out fine. But when it wasn't spaced out enough, it did build up. So it's something to be cautious about and discuss with your practitioner. But what it does is that steroid just goes in, kind of turns off the inflammation in that area, prevents the scar from growing, and also softens it. So again, it's not causing that pain with the collagen contraction. And sometimes it can even change the color and the texture of the keloid. It's not often that it changes the color, but it can. So it is a great option, but it can get expensive depending on how many keloids you have or want to treat, and also how large they are. However, there is a 50 to 100% success rate for an improvement in the size and irritation of the keloid, and also a 9 to 50% recurrence rate, so be aware of that. The next option I want to discuss is laser therapy. This is a great alternative to conventional surgery for keloid treatment, but there is no evidence that says that keloids are less likely to recur after laser treatment than with conventional surgery, so you have to weigh the pros and cons. Within the lasers though, there are ablative and non-ablative lasers. So ablative lasers are those that will cause direct damage to the surface of the skin and kind of slough it away. And then there are non-ablative lasers which will create microchannels of damage deeper in your skin and kind of force your body to heal itself without directly harming the surface of your skin. So for most people, the difference between the two is downtime versus no downtime. In terms of ablative lasers, the options you have available are the erbium-doped YAG laser, the CO2 laser, and the Fraxel treatment. And in terms of non-ablative lasers, you have the pulse dye laser, the neodymium-doped YAG laser, and a couple others, but these are the most well-researched and well-recorded in terms of their benefit. I'm going to leave research down in the description below so that you can go through and read the benefits of each of these lasers and also how they compare to one another. But if you would like another in-depth video going through the different types of lasers, what their uses are in general, then please let me know and I can definitely do that. It's just a lot of information to absorb, so I thought I would leave it for its own video altogether. Next is cryosurgery, which is essentially the freezing of your keloid. So your keloid gets covered in liquid nitrogen, and either it's applied topically or it's actually injected into the keloid if it's bulky enough. Cryosurgery is actually perfect for bulky keloids. Mine was not a candidate for cryosurgery because only parts of it would actually fit the needle, whereas other parts of it are quite flat and flush with the surface of the rest of my skin, so the needle couldn't fit underneath. But if you have a small, concentrated, kind of bulbous keloid, cryosurgery is probably something that would be recommended for you in your case. So again, liquid nitrogen gets applied to the keloid, and this is repeated every 20 to 30 days, and over time, the keloid just freezes and falls off. But one of the biggest side effects of cryosurgery is that it can cause a lightening of the surrounding skin, and so that kind of defeats the purpose of the treatment if the aesthetic side of the keloid is something that you're concerned about. If you're left with a bigger patch of lighter skin, then it's like, which one was worse? So that's definitely something to keep in mind with this procedure. Next, you have a therapy which can be scary to some because it's actually involving a chemotherapy drug. And this is called Fluorouracil. And Fluorouracil gets injected into your keloid with the Keloid, which is the corticosteroid. And this is usually reserved for refractory keloids, or keloids that have resisted treatment through all other modalities. The drug inhibits the synthesis of certain DNA, without which rapidly proliferating cells such as fibroblasts are halted and scar degradation is promoted. It also is believed to hinder type 1 collagen gene expression and TGF-beta1, which all basically means that the driving factors of the growth of the keloid are halted. Next, you have straight up surgery. And this is kind of a hard one because this is usually limited to cases that are either affecting your anatomy, they're getting in the way of your daily living. The far more serious cases are, again, the cases that are refractory to treatment and you really want to have something done about them. Keloids are just your body's form of healing. So there is absolutely no guarantee that they won't grow back after the surgery. And in fact, in 45% of cases, they do grow back. So it is a really, really big procedure to undergo, especially when you go in after having tried so many other procedures and you finally get to this one hoping that it'll be, the be all end all, just cutting it off, and it grows back. And quite often it grows back far worse than it ever was in the first place, which is exactly what happened to me. The one behind my right shoulder, I had surgically removed, and that one grew back. And meanwhile, I also had surgery done on the back of my left shoulder, and that one didn't grow back. So it's all honestly luck of the draw and how your body chooses to react in the aftermath. What I could have done differently is had the surgery, but also gone and had Keloid and Botox put into the injury site post-op. But from my personal experience, I never wanted to go near Keloid ever again. And so I didn't, and it grew back. So if in your case you do want to go for surgery, then that is something that you should absolutely discuss with your physician, following up with those other treatments, because they will greatly, greatly enhance the chances of your keloid never returning, which is what we want. Another thing you can do is actually follow up surgery with radiation, which is also what I had done in my case. Radiation therapy is controversial because it comes with its own host of worries. It can increase your chances of cancer, and at that point you again have to assess what's important to you, what you're willing to take a gamble on, and you also have to time the radiation at a perfect time and intervals. So The best time for you to have that radiation done is during wound healing or surgical wound healing. So having it done right after your actual removal is ideal. It doesn't do much in terms of literature and the research if you have it done on a fully developed keloid that hasn't been removed, because only in that healing process of that wound is where radiation can go in and stop that scar from forming. You will, however, be left with skin changes wherever you have the radiation done. So in my case, it was done in a rectangular, very concentrated rectangular area on both of my shoulders, and I still have my rectangular radiation burns on both of my shoulders, and the color has not faded. It's been 2.5 years since I had it done, so it's still there. I'm still dealing with it, and it doesn't bother me because at least it worked for one of my keloids. But I'm just telling you all of my experiences so I can share with you as many things as possible, because I didn't know any of this, no one discussed it with me, and I don't want you to go in and be blindsided. So the clinic I'm going to is called the Basma Hameed Clinic, and the procedure I'm undergoing is scar camouflage. And this is, in other words, kind of like tattooing, to just really simplify the process down, but it is so far beyond regular tattooing and so far advanced that I don't want you to go to a regular tattoo artist and have this done. It is miles different. However, again, just to simplify describing it, it is the deposition of pigment into your keloid, and you're actually depositing the pigment as deep as the dermal layer of your skin. So it's quite deep. It's what you're kind of trying to achieve when you have microneedling done. And what the process entails, like I said, is, again, you're depositing that pigment, but when you have it done, the first time at least, because I've just had one round done so far out of, I'm told, about 6 that I'll require, the pigment is very, very light. And it's kind of alarming because at first you're saying, you know, that pigment looks nothing like the color of my skin. How is that going to match? It's going to look really light. But what is actually happening is only a fraction of that pigment is actually absorbed into the keloid, and your existing keloid's color alters how that pigment is going to be absorbed. So at the end of the day, the resulting color is some middle ground between your existing baseline color and the color of that pigment. And the goal is for it to match the rest of your body. So each time you go and have it done, a little more and a little more and a little more of that pigment gets absorbed, and eventually it color corrects, it camouflages the scar, but at the same time, because you're having that almost microneedling type procedure done, it reaches into your dermis, into an area where it can break up the collagen. And again, the theory is that if you break up the collagen, then the scar softens, it flattens down, it doesn't have that raised edge to it. And also, ideally, if there's no collagen left, or if it's broken down, then it can't contract and entrap your nerves, helping with the pain as well. So in the best case scenario, again, it is treating every single major issue that you could have with your keloid. And again, it's not suitable for all keloids. It definitely depends on the size, the location, but they do this treatment even on eyelid scars. And it's not just keloids that they work on C-section scars, burns, any site of injury, post-op scars, breast augmentation scars, piercing scars, birthmarks. It is incredible, and the results speak for themselves. So like I said, I've only been one time, but I've been taking pictures for you guys. And I will say that the procedure is not easy. I already told you I have been through basically everything that there is available to me. And this was the most painful of everything that I've been through. If you have keloids and you experience their pain, it's essentially like an hour nonstop of that pain. And it's a lot. For me, it's the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. And that is a huge statement. But I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to be honest with you so that you can be prepared when you go in, if you go in. And essentially, the day of, I was only able to have like 70% of my keloid done because I just could not stand the pain anymore. I was crying, I was shaking, I was not having a good time by the end of it. I couldn't take it anymore. And so we stopped because there's no point in continuing and having your body reject the pigment if it's in shock. And yeah, so I only had 70% done of 6 procedures, or actually 70% done of 1 of 6 procedures. So I have a long way to go, but the aftermath has been okay. I will say that there were some side effects that I wasn't prepared for. I had a numbness and almost a loss of power in my arm momentarily for about 48 hours afterwards. And this is not normal. And again, this is solely because my keloid is really large. It already has neuropathic pain, which a lot of people don't deal with. And it's on my shoulder. It's really close to my nerves. And like I said, my nerves are already affected. So I'm already starting off at a bad position. But I was having that pain, which I normally already have once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, almost every hour. And the first day, it was just constant for the next 24 hours. It really hurt. I was like bracing myself all throughout the day whenever it started. And I actually had a few moments where I lost grip strength in my hand. I've been telling some of my friends because I couldn't explain it. When I was focusing on carrying something, so if I'm carrying something heavy, like a laptop, I'm focusing on gripping it, I wouldn't drop that. But if my focus wasn't there, it would just slip out of my hand and I would not understand why that was happening. I, for example, was holding a spatula. I was trying to flip an egg and it's just a spatula with an egg. So I wasn't really focused on gripping it hard and it just slipped out of my hand. The egg fell into the open flame. A similar experience, I was at the grocery store and I was just holding a small, really light plastic packet and it slipped out of my hands out of nowhere. And similar things like that happened quite a few times in the days that followed my procedure, which was about 10 days ago, I want to say. I'll tell you the exact days. My days are a blur right now, but yeah, that did go away, but it was scary for a moment. And again, that's solely because my issues with my keloid are entirely unique to anyone else's issues with their keloid. So it's just something I'm again sharing so that you're aware that it's something that I dealt with. So maybe you could face it too. But I think in most cases, say you have a scar on your sternum or on your wrist or elsewhere where it's not so sensitive of an area nerve-wise, you probably won't be dealing with these side effects, but I wanted to let you know my experience, the good and the bad. But I will be continuing, absolutely, because the pigment has been picking up so well in the keloid. It begins to scab over in the following days after your procedure. And then once those scabs fall off, you can see the resulting change in your keloid. And mine is crazy. It already looks like the color of my skin. So it's doing really, really well. And it's really promising to me so far. Also, normally you space these procedures out once a month roughly, but I am spacing mine out about 1.5 to 2 months because I want to stop if at any point I start developing more keloid. And I want to give myself that time. So I'm being very conservative with my treatment. And the girls at the Basma Hameed clinic have been absolutely fantastic in accommodating that and being so gentle with me the entire time. They have been nothing but absolutely perfect. This is the safest and most welcoming place that you could go with something that affects you so intimately. So yeah, I think that's about it. But I will say this procedure is very expensive. For the whole 6 treatments, it's about $3,500. And so it's a lot, and it's not necessarily something that's an option for everyone. So I do want to let you know that. But if you're in a position where you really want to have something done and it is something that you can afford, then I wanted to bring this forward to you because I had never heard of it until I discovered Basma Hameed totally by accident, and I thought that I would share it with the rest of you guys so you know that it's definitely out there and an option, but she is one of a kind. So again, do not go to a tattoo artist and ask them to do this. Please do not do that. Your keloid will more than likely just erupt into a larger lesion, so don't even take that chance. Anyways, that is all I wanted to say in this video. Hopefully I gave you a really good, thorough but quick rundown of the treatment modalities that are open to you. Again, I'm gonna leave all the information about each of these down below so that you can read into them more in depth and do your own research, kind of pick and choose what suits you, what doesn't suit you, and also weigh your options. Moving forward, I do want to talk about, of course, how my process develops and also who the leading physicians and practitioners in keloid treatment are worldwide. So wherever in the world you're from, I would love if you could comment it down below so that I can go and research your area and find you the best of the best, so that you can go and know that you're being taken care of by someone who is going to really do the best job possible. Yeah, and that is it. I really hope this was helpful to you. I'm really excited to keep you up to date on what happens with me. And until then, I will talk to you soon. Bye.